Welcome back to another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. I am your host, Casey Coleman. Joining me on this week's episode is Marcela Munoz. Marcela is currently the Senior Event Manager at the Rose Bowl Stadium. Really enjoyed my conversation with Marcela, just talking about her journey in sports to where she's at today, working at the Rose Bowl. I think the biggest thing that stuck out was when I asked the question about to what or to whom would she credit her longevity in sports, and she just talked about the addiction of it. How so many of us in sports are in sports because we love to create those moments. We love to create those memories for individuals and fans that come to our stadiums or come to our events or whatever those things may be. And I think that's such a great point and reminder, because there's a lot of times where we're down, we're discouraged, but really if we can get back to the idea of I am creating memorable moments for these individuals that families are spending together, that loved ones are spending together, it really just is something that really can put you right back on the right track, keep you moving in the right direction, and keep you motivated and excited. So really enjoyed that idea of just working in sports being an addiction, continuing to keep it going, continuing to want to create those memories for other people. So overall, really enjoyed my conversation. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Marcela Munoz. Folks, please help me welcome in this week's guest, Marcela Munoz. Marcela is currently the event manager at the Rose Bowl Stadium. Marcela, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Ready to go. Excited to be here.
Love it. Love it. Thanks so much for being a part. Looked back, realized a guest of season one, JT McCreary, was the one that connected us and referred us to each other. And so excited to have you on the podcast, and we will get going.
Awesome. Yes. Shout out to JT.
Absolutely. First question, what pivotal experience in your education or early career helped you realize that the sports industry was the right path for you?
So I will preface with saying I grew up really wanting to be in radio. I wanted to work for a radio company. I studied communications at Cal Poly Pomona. Um, really tried to get an internship starting in radio with iHeartRadio, and somehow landed in the what's called the fan assistance department at the Rose Bowl Stadium, which I like to joke, and it's actually outside guest services outside of the stadium. So I make a joke and I'm like, I didn't even make it in the building when I
Yeah.
first started. And that was my intro into the world of working in sports. I grew up loving sports, watching sports. And so I didn't even realize that you could make a career out of it. I pretty much, I like to joke with the folks here at the Rose Bowl. I started that in 2014 and I've come back ever since.
Love it. Love it. In the ever evolving world of sport management, how do you stay updated and continue to learn beyond formal education? Are there any ongoing educational experiences or resources that you would recommend for others?
Yeah, I think my favorite resource would have to be just talking to other people who do what you do. One of my favorite things to do, even when I call it off the clock on vacation or, not in town, is to visit another venue. And I sorry to everybody who wants to work in sports, but you'll never see a venue or you'll never go to an event and have the same lens because you're always
Sure.
going to be looking at the little things. And so whenever I have the ability to connect with folks that, in other states and see what they're doing, or even in other countries and see, how they operate their venue and how they run events, and, if they've got a tenant, if they've got multiple tenants, if they're city owned, if they're state owned, private owned. So I just love connecting with other folks and seeing how they do things, because learn by doing, and we can't make all the mistakes ourselves. And we do things great, other venues do things really well, and it's great to learn from each other.
Love it. So you'd say it's hard to go to a stadium now for you and just be a fan because you're so aware and watching everything going on?
Absolutely. But I will also say that I think it's really great to go with me because I know how to get in and out of a venue like pretty quickly. I feel like I know how to navigate through, and I'm doing my due diligence and I'm reading beforehand. Is it a clear bag? What's the best entry? Where's the best place to park? How do we, where's the best place to get an Uber or a Lyft? So I feel like I also have that slight advantage.
Love it. Next question. I actually included this question because this was me prior to starting the sport management program at Long Beach State, just not having experience in sports. The question, what advice would you give to individuals who are considering a career in sport management but may not have a traditional sports-related educational or work experience background? How can they leverage their existing skills and knowledge to break into the industry?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I will say this, working in sports is like working, it is different, but it's also, you do a lot of the same things, right? You've got your marketing department, your sales department, your
Sure.
operation. So a lot of the skills that even we have are transferable outside of the sports world. And I think vice versa. You can definitely bring an outside person who may not have the knowledge of working, whether for a sports team or a venue. But I think that having the mindset of I'm really willing to learn and willing to adapt, and you know, it's not traditional corporate.
Sure.
So there are going to be some things that you're like, oh, we would never do that over at Acme company,
Yeah.
Uh, so really being able to pivot and adjust and learn that there's a little bit more flexibility, I think, in sports, and not being afraid to do anything. Right? If you know what you want to do, you might have to start at a different level, because you have a little bit different experience than coming into the world of sports. So never be afraid to start at, I'm going to make a copy, I'm going to pick up the trash, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. The little things that help get your foot in the door for sure.
Absolutely.
Next question. You worked approximately 9 years so far in the sport management field. To what or to whom would you credit your longevity so far in the sports world?
I think too, it's an addiction. It's you get so much joy out of creating memories and creating experiences for people, right? That it just becomes a part of your everyday.
Yeah.
And I think I owe a lot of it to the people around me. So my peers, my colleagues, the incredible folks I've met along the way that, you know, we talked about JT earlier, meeting people from where we started, seeing them grow,
Yeah.
and speak for our team here at the Rose Bowl. I've got an incredible team that helps me get through when, we have crazy times like a soccer game into back-to-back concert. So I think just surrounding yourself with great people who have that same work ethic and that same drive to create experiences helps the time fly by fast, because I can't even believe it's been close to 9 years.
Yeah, definitely surrounding yourself with great people. We'll get into the mentor question here in a second, but love to hear that that's where you went with that question for sure. Because none of us are where we're at based on our own on ourselves. We've obviously had people that have led the way and helped us get there. So
Oh, absolutely.
love it. Next question. Moving into our advice portion of our conversation, what are the key skills or qualities that you believe aspiring sport management professionals should focus on developing to stand out in the sport management field, which, as I'm currently learning, is very competitive?
Yes. I think there's three things that come to mind for me. The first one I will say is work ethic. You can probably talk to anybody in the sports field, and especially coming out of the pandemic, the work ethic, I think people being comfortable at home, maybe people, having that time away from sports and from their venues, you you see who really wanted to be here and who wanted to make this long term. And so having that incredible drive and that work ethic, I think stands out to me. I feel like I can pick that out in a crowd, with all the folks that might reach out and say, hey, we want to do this. And everybody wants to do this until they get here and they see the hours and they see, the job description, and they're living it in real time.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe this wasn't for me.
yeah,
So that's a big one. The second one is probably the same thing everybody would say as well, as like communication, right?
sure,
Over communicating, just be a great communicator, just going back and forth. And I think that helps in all aspects of your life, right? Everything from a job interview, from your personal relationships to your professionalism and how you present yourself to your clients, your guests, all of the above. So I think that's just a skill that is underrated. And I will say, when I say communication, a lot of people think, oh, I need to learn how to speak, I need to learn how to type. But I would say majority of communication is listening, right? You're
yeah,
listening to understand and to really hear people out, and what's the problem? How do we, digest that? How do we solve that? How do we help be a part of the solution? Because I think people hear communication and they automatically think, my communication out to the world
sure.
versus what are people telling me and how can I, be receptive of that? And I think the last one is probably my biggest one. It's just being genuine, right? you get a lot of people who want to do this, and there's so many, fancy names to this, right? You've got all of the major teams, you've got people working with athletes, you've got, you know, even in our world on the venue side, you've got concerts. So you have artists, you have, incredible brands that you work with. Um, and so if you're here just for the glitz and glamour, it's going to get picked out. But if you genuinely want to create great experiences, if you want to be a part of working, with the crowd, with your tenants, with your teams, I think that will help stand out because you can tell the difference of someone who just wants to capture that Instagram moment and somebody who saw the kid who was there who dropped their popcorn and maybe went to the concession stand and got him new popcorn because it was their first game, and that's an everlasting impression that they might have. And that's I think that's where that genuine production comes off, and people can see that.
Absolutely. Very important in any venue or any event or sport is that genuine attitude for sure. The
Mm.
sports industry is known for its high pressure moments. I'm sure you deal with plenty of them yourself working on the event side of sports. How do you maintain your composure and make strategic decisions during intense situations?
Yeah, and I hope my team doesn't laugh when I talk about this. um, I think especially being an event manager, um, it's unique in the sense that we're kind of the quarterback, right? We're the quarterback of the entire scope of the event, and so a lot of the pressure does fall on us, especially during the event week. And I would say it's a combination of adrenaline and really understanding and like trying to see the future, right? You're trying to look at the long-term goal of like we're trying to get to the end of the event. Um or even getting to gates open, right? Show start and then end of the event. But
Hmm.
it's keeping that in mind. But I would say a lot of it is also adrenaline because you just have that in you. And I think that comes with experience of being under pressure
Sure.
and knowing how to make those decisions, because a lot of what we do is making decisions on the fly and being
Yeah.
able to adjust and pivot when something doesn't go wrong, because inevitably something will go wrong.
Right. How much of that would you equate, just to follow up to that, how much of that would you equate to just being prepped ahead of time, the planning ahead, the pre-event or pre-concert or pre-game preparation that goes into it, so that when that situation may arise that you maybe hadn't planned, you're able to address it and handle it in a timely manner?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Anytime you can pre-plan, whatever you can get ahead of, get ahead of. And there's certain things, even when we're planning, we call it major event week, right? We know the show, the event, whatever it might be, is on Saturday.
Sure.
It might be Monday or Tuesday, and we're like, we still have time to do X, Y, and Z. But if we can get it done, I try to work with our team and say, like, let's just get it done. Well,
Yeah.
let's start here. Let's get ahead of it. Let's foreshadow our clients' needs, our vendors' needs, our partners' needs, whatever it might be. Let's get ahead of it because inevitably it'll come back to us,
Yeah.
and we'll be thankful that I'd like to make a joke, and I'd like to say, yesterday me, thankful to yesterday me because she took care of that, and now I don't have to deal with it today. And then it lets you address the problems that arise day of, and that you can handle and focus your attention on that rather than something that could have been done earlier in the
Right.
week.
Right. Absolutely. We chatted, as I mentioned, a little bit about this when we talked about your longevity in sports. You just mentioned different people that have come alongside you in your journey. Curious, maybe who some of these different mentors were that helped you in your journey, that you were able to lean on when you needed to, and how would you say they best helped you along your journey so far?
Yeah, so there's quite a few, and the first I will start. Her name is Julie Benavides, who spent 20 plus years working in the events role here at the Rose Bowl. Who's when I started my internship, she was an absolute incredible gem, just giving me the opportunity and really trying to walk me through like this is what an event is, this is what you should look for, this is how you should work with clients and
Hmm.
vendors, you know, just always in my corner cheering me on. And then when I went over to LAFC, uh, gentleman who was on your podcast, Tim McNeff, Timo, he was instrumental in helping me grow there. That was kind of the bigger stepping stone that I took to manage the events over at now BMO Stadium and with LAFC. Um, and I still talk to him to this day. great mentor of mine. Absolutely. He spent 10 plus years over at Staples Center. I will forever call it Staples Center.
I'm with
Uh,
you. Keep it up. Keep it up.
yeah. Uh, so absolutely incredible. And then there's so many other folks along the way. We have Monique Reeves, who is our chief revenue officer here at the Rose Bowl. Um, Incredible mentor of mine, just even from when I was starting. So um, there's so many people and there's so much great knowledge out there. I just encourage
Yes.
everyone to find a mentor, find somebody who you can connect with, who you can relate with, and try to build that relationship rather than not to say networking as a whole isn't great, but make those genuine connections rather than just being able to just say hi to everybody and nobody really knowing your story, because then they can't root for you and they can't be in your corner.
Absolutely. That pairs great to our next question in regards to networking. How can individuals new to the field effectively build a strong network in the sport management sector?
Yeah, I think I just kind of touched on it, but it's finding that common connection, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of different departments within sports. I think people need to know what they want to do first and foremost. But then also, what is that connection you have? And sometimes it's, you're an alumnus of the same university. Sometimes it's that you're, the first in your generation to go to college. Sometimes it's just that you have an absolute passion for basketball. Whatever that might be, find a genuine connection and way to relate to somebody that you're hoping to network with and start that genuine conversation. And I know I keep repeating the word genuine, but I think anyone who's worked in sports, especially for quite some time, has had those LinkedIn requests where we would love to talk to you. We would love an informational interview. And you hear that and you might talk to some of them and it's great, but it's almost like a one and done. You have that conversation with them and they've moved on. Uh, but I think if you want to make that genuine connection, I always say this, and I'm sure many people say this, but you want somebody who's going to bring your name up in a room that you're not in, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that always being at the back of somebody's mind is hard to create. So you need to cultivate that, and it takes time, and it needs, like I said, again, needs to be genuine. So um, just find that common, core, and see if you can talk to them and follow up. And I think everybody's heard the rest of it from there. But yeah,
Yeah, genuine for sure. I love that you keep hitting on it because it's so true. And there is a difference between that person that it's just coming to you because they want something or they know that you know someone that can put in a reference or you work for a team or whatever versus really wanting to build those relationships and have those genuine relationships. So
yeah,
I think that's great that you keep hitting on it. Another thing I want to draw back from earlier in our conversation, you talked about when people see the hours, especially working in sports, it's definitely unconventional. It's not your Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Uh, on that thread, for you personally, what is the key to maintaining a good work life balance? How do you not get overwhelmed with your career and still make time for family and friends and things you enjoy doing outside of work?
yeah. And I think even listening to some of your episodes, I don't think we've nailed it yet.
Right?
I don't think anyone has truly nailed it yet. And I think the problem with that is that we're the very lucky few who do what we love,
Sure.
right? So it doesn't truly feel like work. Um, Looking back at the concert that I just did, I probably worked, I don't even want to do the math, but it's, well, 100 hours within a span of 7 days or something
Okay.
of that nature, right? Uh, but it was thrilling and I wouldn't take it back. And you do that with any other style of event, and
Right.
you love what you do so much that it doesn't feel like work. However, the longer I do this, and I think you'll probably see that with the folks that you talk to that have done this for longer, uh, you have to start to realize like it's okay to say no.
Right.
And just a lot of us who work in sports are not really good at that. So we're always like, yeah, it's okay. You can call me. It's fine. It's 7 p.m. It's okay. It's 7 a.m. I'm just driving in. Just give
Yeah.
me a call. But it's okay to ignore the call. It's okay to ignore the text message. Um, I think I saw a note earlier this week and it said something like, don't confuse my free time as availability. Right. And I think
Yeah.
it's us forcing that, right? Just because I am free, that that doesn't mean I'm available
Yeah.
to you. And that's something that I still work on. And I know my friends and family who listen to this will probably say, no, she doesn't. But we're trying. So if I ever find the answer, or if you ever find the answer of something, one of your guests, just let me know. I mean, I'll be listening. But yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I made a joke last season that if I made a montage of the first 10 seconds of everyone's answer to that question, it would be, I'm still working on it. So I think we're
Yeah,
all working on it.
maybe we
Uh,
all need to get together and brainstorm.
that's right. That's right. Maybe one way will come to the answer, but uh, absolutely, it's a work in progress for everyone. And like you mentioned, everyone's on a different path and figuring it out as they go along. Bringing it home, final few more fun, lighthearted questions. What is the most heartwarming or memorable sport moment you witnessed or experienced? Maybe something we as the casual fan would never see on TV, but you had the chance to witness or experience?
And I can't remember. I know JT had talked about the MLS Cup, and I don't remember if he talked about the opening of when it was Bank of California Stadium. The very first game, the inaugural game at home, April 29th, 2018. 29, 28. I should know this. 2018. It was probably one of the most heartwarming experiences to watch. And it was actually a lot of it was JT's crew, the guest experience representatives. When we opened the gates for the very first time, everybody was like, welcome home to all of the guests walking in.
Yeah,
And I'd never felt so emotional doing anything in my life. It was welcome home, to the bank. And it just you could see everybody so excited to be there for the first time
yeah,
and be a part of history, because it's not very often you get to open a stadium in Los Angeles, at least.
it's true. We have been blessed to open a few in the last few years. Obviously, SoFi, the big one as well. And then here coming up, we have the new Clipper Stadium as well. So a few that we've got to open here in Southern California for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that was an awesome experience to be a part of that.
Yeah, that was very memorable. Like, I can envision it still to this day.
Next question. If you could switch roles with any athlete for a day, who would it be and why?
That's a good one. Obvious answer at the time, at the peak, early 2000s would be a Kobe Bryant.
Yeah,
I would love to see, I talked about work ethic earlier, and I don't know, there's very few people who work in sports who don't reference that work ethic, right? The
sure,
Mormon mentality.
sure.
It's hard not to. And I'm pretty sure all of us at many times have gotten into points in our life where we're like, oh, I don't think I can do this. And then especially the LA folks, some of you might be able to relate, but like, what would Kobe do? Like, he pushed through right now.
Yeah.
um, so I think, yeah, Kobe Bryant.
Okay. Okay. Great answer. If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why?
Okay, out of all of the questions that I had, previously that you'd sent me, that one was the one that just I couldn't seem to figure out. There's so many.
You can pick a
Um,
few if you want. You can have a
okay,
playlist if you want.
give you a top three.
Okay.
Um,
Love it.
Lose Yourself by Eminem,
Okay.
Crazy in Love by Beyonce,
Okay.
and probably All Falls Down by Kanye West and Selena Johnson. So those are very early 2000s, very representative of my early childhood and, growing up watching sports and, sitting in front of the TV and watching the Lakers play.
There you go. The
Yeah.
playlist, not just the song. I love it. Final question. Sports often brings people together and creates unforgettable moments. Can you share a personal sports moment that left a lasting impact on you? Maybe not even one you worked, maybe one you attended as a fan or something you got to experience that left a lasting impression.
Yeah, I think the biggest memorable one for me is just growing up and coming to UCLA games, UCLA football games with my dad. He went to UCLA, and so he had season tickets. And I remember coming to the Rose Bowl. So it's a very full circle moment um, to be able to work here. And you can't see what's
Sure.
in front of me, but it's a field beautifully prepped and ready to go for our UCLA game tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's an incredible memory that I hold very close to my heart.
For sure, for sure. The Rose Bowl is definitely an iconic place, not only in Southern California, but in sports for sure.
Mhm.
Marcela, thank you so much for taking some time just to jump on, share some insight and wisdom that you've gained in your 9 years so far. We're saying so far because I'm sure you have many more ahead. But thank you for just sharing about your journey and being a part of the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to hear some of the other guests. And like I said, if we ever find that answer for work-life balance, you just let me know.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. You can still find the audio version of our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many more. New this season, you can find the video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to follow us across social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We release new episodes every Monday, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss a single episode. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.